Prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and fatty liver are symptoms of poor carbohydrate metabolism, and they can all be reversed through diet and lifestyle. Hi friends, the number one food to improve blood sugar and fatty liver will have these other 9 qualities. Now let's rapid fire through these key points in less than a minute. Number 1, it will improve weight loss. Number 2, it will reverse insulin resistance. Number 3, it will give you energy. Number 4, it can reduce the risk of cancers. Number 5, it will improve blood lipids. Number 6, it will promote good gut microbes. Number 7, it will help to balance hormones. Number 8, it will reduce inflammation. And number 9, it will be nutritious as a great source of protein and micronutrients like potassium. I actually consider these to be my top 10 commandments for food quality. And the only food that hits all of these 10 commandments is food from the family called Fabaceae or Leguminosae, which is the third largest family of flowering plants consisting of 20,000 species. These plants are staple foods around the world because they are inexpensive, fiber-rich, and have stood the test of time and eaten by many ancient cultures throughout the world. Now, if you have prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, or fatty liver, the good news is that these are all fully reversible at early stages, and the key is to incorporate this plant family in your daily diet. If you're having a difficult time incorporating healthy foods because they are tasteless, then let me show you a tasty, delicious recipe for a healthy mango medley at the end of this video. Before you get overwhelmed, I will explain 3 easy steps to get your health back. And feel free to skip to any of the sections as listed in the chapter show notes. And remember, if you just want the recipe, well, go to the end of the video. Now, you may think these changes will take you months to happen. That's actually not true. In fact, as soon as you eat your food, you will start changing your metabolism and your epigenetics. There is no neutral food. Food is either going to make you healthier or it will tax your health the same day, literally within minutes of eating it. So, step 1, by eating better for the rest of this day, you will begin to change your metabolism. And by doing so, you can improve your blood sugar and begin to reverse fat in your liver and start losing weight. You may not see these changes on the outside, even though they're happening inside cells. But I assure you, I have seen blood sugars plummet in a couple of days for people who are all in. So before you make any dietary changes, be sure to talk to your medical doctor to let them know what you plan to do, especially if you're on any medications that regulate your blood sugars and blood pressure. The key to health, no matter your age, is in the quality of your food. The 20,000 species of plants from the family Fabaceae and Leguminosae are in your local supermarket and sold as beans and legumes like peanuts. Now, if you have some peanuts, eat them without salt. If you have a choice between a chicken burrito or a bean burrito, pick the bean burrito. If you are looking for a salad dressing, change your ranch to hummus. Now, if you're choosing between French fries and refried beans, well, choose those refried beans. Just by doing these small, tiny, tasty changes, you will have upgraded your food quality and have chosen the foods that meet the 10 commandments for health. We should expect all of our food to reach these commandments. Now, this family is so important that I personally eat at least 3 cups of a variety of beans and legumes every day. Now, when you order out, be careful of added salt. Salt will make you just simply eat more food, and it elevates your blood pressure, especially in the presence of fructose, a sugar found in processed foods such as high fructose corn syrup, apple juice flavored products like all natural fruit juice, and table sugar, which is half fructose found in your favorite treat, muffin or sweetbread. Please don't confuse this with fructose found in whole fruit, which is very little fructose because the majority of the fruit is water. And all of this is trapped in a hard shell of fiber. And when you keep the fiber of that fruit intact, the fructose is slowly released to your gut microbes so that your intestinal bacteria can actually use up most of that fructose in that whole fruit. And this is another reason why blending sugary fruits is not a good idea if you're trying to lower your blood sugars, which will lower insulin surges, which lowers the amount of fat that you will store. And when you blend it, you're destroying the structure of the fiber. The fiber's still there, except that it's in pieces. And by doing so, you just increase the rate at which you release the nutrients, like the sugars. And the only exception to this rule would be berries, as berries have been shown not to spike blood sugars. Unlike other fruits, berries are special because they are full of seeds and skin that contain polyphenols that can inhibit digestive enzymes. This results in slowing down your absorption of nutrients. Berries are also super high in fiber, and that's why they taste drier than watery fruits like watermelon. Now, if your goal is to gain weight, then blending your food is a great way to gain weight, as it's been shown that people simply eat more food when they don't have to chew. Now, I'm sure you've been told that you shouldn't eat carbohydrates if you want low and perfect blood sugars. Just like finding your way home, there are several paths you can take to achieve that goal. But if you drive the wrong way, there are consequences, even though you may still get home. This is also true for health. Having low blood sugars does not necessarily mean you have found the path to health. And this is because blood sugar is just one of several markers to measure health. It's like weight. Skinny people aren't necessarily healthy because some of the sickest people are actually some of the skinniest people. Did you know that longevity cultures around the world not only eat carbohydrates, but they center their meals around beans and legumes? And as a result, they have normal blood sugar metabolism, they are normal weight, and they don't have fatty liver. Have you heard of the famous Okinawan purple sweet potato? Turns out that purple pigment is way beyond just pretty, as even sweet potato juice has been shown to reduce liver enzymes. Now, this is the power of eating the right plants. And you would think that long-lived cultures would be genetically related, right? But that's not the case. One of the longest lived cultures who have made it on the Blue Zone documentary is the Seventh-day Adventist Christian community. And it turns out they're not genetically related. They live all over the world, including near me in a city called Loma, California. Seventh-day Adventists are made from different ethnic communities from all around the world, and they actually eat different types of food. And since 1974, over 22,000 Seventh-day Adventists have volunteered to be followed to see which diet is best to achieve different health goals like lower blood sugars, lower weight, and longevity. And those who ate plant-exclusive diets have lower blood sugars and lower weight. And there is no way to eat a plant-exclusive diet and exclude carbohydrates. It's not uncommon to meet centenarians like Dr. Scharfenberg, who is still actively teaching on social media. I really hope to meet him one day. Now, I'm sure you know someone who eats the opposite of a whole food plant-based diet. They may be on a no carb or low carb and has reversed their diabetes, fatty liver, and lost weight. I don't doubt it. If you don't eat sugar, then you won't have blood sugar spikes after meals. Have you tried a no carb or low carb diet? It's not as tasty, so naturally you will simply eat less food. This translates into losing weight, which by itself can reverse diabetes if you lose enough weight, about 33 pounds for those who are obese. And just by taking added fructose and table sugar or sucrose out of your diet, you're no longer packing fat inside your liver. It's been shown that low carb and no carb diets are very hard to continue. Ultimately, people end up eating poor quality carbohydrates again, and their dietary pattern becomes a medium carb and high fat diet, which brings them back to the initial starting point of the problem. Hence, the diabetes, fatty liver, and being overweight all returns. And this is the problem with any diet. If you can't continue the diet, the original problem returns because the original problem was the diet. Prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, and fatty liver are symptoms of poor carbohydrate metabolism, and they can all be reversed through diet and lifestyle with time. The other problem with a low carbohydrate or no carbohydrate diet are that people will notice that their lipid panel, especially their LDL, may rise. Persistent LDL elevation is associated with arterial inflammation and is just as significant as elevated persistent abnormal blood sugars on your arteries. But again, health is more than just one marker. That's why I listed the 10 commandments that I regard to be vital to achieve and maintain health. And if you're eating a low carbohydrate diet, or really any diet, remember to add low carbohydrate leafy greens and vegetables, as these plants have an abundance of nutrients that include fiber and other phytonutrients that feed your good gut microbes and inhibit pathogenic microbes to mitigate inflammation and lower both LDL and blood sugars. Also, remember to add some beans and legumes to help meet your dietary fiber needs, which is superior than taking fiber supplements. The target of at least 30 grams of fiber daily is what I eat. Fiber helps to reduce inflammation. It helps to expel toxins and toxic buildup of cholesterol and excess hormones like estrogen, which can all get recycled on the days you don't have a bowel movement. Did I also mention that people who eat more fiber also have lower risk of several different types of cancers? By now, you might be confused about which diet to follow. You're not alone. I was confused as well. Growing up, I would hear exercise gurus saying, just eat and run it off like Jim Fixx. But then I saw Jack Lalanne on TV and in magazines advocating for people to eat more plants. That man lived the lifestyle he preached and died at 96. And at the age of 70, he swam across the Long Beach harbor, shackled to 70 boats filled with people. And he tugged all of them across the harbor at the same time. I can't even swim myself across a swimming pool. Now, obviously, Jack Lalanne had many successful habits, and apparently he also had a buddy who was a PhD nutritionist. Now, between commercials and diet gurus, there are so many opinions. It seems that we can really choose any of the diets and reduce our blood sugars, lose our weight, and find health. And you probably can for a short time. It's like making videos on social media. You just have to start, you learn as you go, and you find the right ways and the wrong ways to make these videos. So step 2, start your health journey today. If you want to call it a diet, that's okay. But if you've ever been on a diet and you yo-yo back up, you know that diets just don't last. Ultimately, you will have the most success if you can make your diet a lifestyle, and you will be even more successful if you can have a coach or a buddy to encourage you. Eating is like earning a grade point average. It's not just one meal or food that will make or break your dietary GPA. It is an overall average of everything that you eat. So if you occasionally reward yourself on weekends, that's actually a great way to start. Now, the lower your dietary GPA at the start, the easier it is to see and feel improvements when you're doing the hard work most of the days. So if you're just eating junk, you got plenty to choose from to improve. And you know you're failing your dietary GPA when you're struggling with metabolic consequences. And really, any kind of effort to upgrade that quality of your diet will bring your dietary GPA average way up with each bite. And you will see and feel this transformation in your energy, your mood, your skin health, and your bowel movements. Adding a few beans and legumes, even one bean a day, is a great way to start to train your gut microbiome. Now, eating beans is an exercise for your gut because mechanically it will need to hold more volume and mass as fiber draws in water to expand your gut lumen. And this is why if you eat too many beans at one time without training, you will feel bloated. It's like going to Disneyland and walking all day. You'll easily get in 20,000 steps and feel wiped out the next day. But if you slowly train yourself to be able to walk to 20,000 steps, then you won't feel less sore when you go to Disneyland. Beans and legumes require the gut to be trained. Besides water weight, the microbes will be excited to eat. And when they are excited, that's called fermentation, and they create gases. They literally fart. And when that collection is big enough, you will pass that gas. Did you know it's normal to fart like 14 times a day? So don't be surprised that you'll be more gassy once you start eating more beans. And one way to reduce the amount of gas is to eat sprouted beans. And if you don't want your gas to stink, then reduce the animal products high in methionine because that is rich in sulfur, which smells like rotten eggs. Now, while you are training your gut to eat beans, avoid engineered foods, which is the most common reason why diets fail. Engineered foods include those that are genetically modified. And in case you don't know, you don't need to manipulate DNA directly to genetically modify genes. Genes can be modified through toxins. In fact, our environment constantly modifies our genes. Do you remember how the drug thalidomide caused birth defects? How about the near extinction of bald eagles from DDT? What about asbestos and mesothelioma, a fatal lung cancer? Do you think maybe there's a toxin in the environment that is causing the epidemic of fatty liver, high blood sugars, and obesity? I do. These toxins are not hidden. They're actually in plain sight. And many people think the dynamite is fructose and sucrose, basically simple sugars. But the reality is you also need a lighter for that dynamite to explode. And that is saturated fat. Farmers have known this perfect recipe to fatten animals since medieval times. And we have classically only thought about genetic modification when we talk about plants and how they are more resistant to pesticides and pests. However, what this has really done is allowed food scientists to break plants apart into chemical components and engineer fake foods to feed to people and the animals that people eat. Sodas, chips, crackers, muffins are easily recognized as engineered foods. Engineered foods are created for pleasure, but the consequences are high blood sugars, fatty livers, and outrageous body weights. And they do this because these chemicals manipulate your hormones and neurotransmitters to get you to eat more. Your stomach becomes an endless pit because you literally just can't eat one. And cutting these engineered foods out automatically improves anyone's dietary GPA. So any diet that removes processed foods will improve blood sugars, fatty livers, and weight loss. Now let's think about animal products and how your meats have been genetically manipulated. Seriously, unless they are 3D printing 1 million chickens an hour, how can America keep up with its appetite of chicken unless there is some genetic manipulation? Did you know that before the 1950s, chickens used to be way smaller? They were actually tastier and they had way less fat. Your bacon should also be less fatty and difficult to catch because pigs are actually smart, small, and agile animals running as fast as 30 miles per hour. My mom had a pet pig when she was young. Her pig acted like a guard dog, and sometimes it just jumped over the fence when it wanted to roam around the neighborhood. Cows were also not obese and marbleized. The prized Japanese Wagyu cow is at least 21% marbleized fat. That doesn't happen by accident. That cow has insulin resistance. Obese animals are a great way to earn money. Farmers figured out that the quickest way to fatten a pig is to feed a pig fat. Pigs also get fat by overeating carbohydrates. Notice the resemblance to human chow? These high-energy diets are designed to genetically modify animals to fatten them up in less time. And just like people, these animals get so heavy that they can't stand up and they suffer from joint and cardiovascular complications and liver failure. How do they make animals eat so much? Well, you can force feed them, like how they make foie gras, fatty liver, or you can engineer synthetic flavorings, just like what is placed in engineered processed human foods. Today, so many people are confused which protein is good quality when tofu made from soybeans has more protein than a McDonald's hamburger beef patty. And in case you're wondering, the food with less saturated fat, tofu, is the winner. Saturated fat is a mitochondrial toxin that inhibits proper carbohydrate metabolism, resulting in elevated blood sugars, insulin resistance, and fatty liver. If you don't want these carbohydrate metabolism complications, you can either give up eating carbohydrates, or you can continue to eat carbohydrates and give up what is really causing the problem, saturated fat. And the quickest way to reverse this is to reduce the amount of saturated fat in your food. So processed foods and animal products are all high in saturated fat. But if your mitochondria is already damaged, even if you give up saturated fat directly from your food, when you overeat calories, you will create your own saturated fat. And this is why people who overeat highly processed carbohydrates have high triglyceride levels. And this is another reason why beans and legumes are great protein substitutes that can help reduce cholesterol, fatty liver, blood sugar, and weight. I remember how back in the 80s and 90s, we were told to eat less fat. And a lot of people think that dietary advice was bad. And this is because people began to replace fat with simple sugars and processed carbohydrates like flour. So if you replace a low-fat diet with overeating high processed carbohydrates, you're actually not creating better health. But any diet that can reduce calories from both of these food groups, the saturated fat and the processed carbohydrates and the simple sugars, will improve fatty liver, blood sugars, and weight loss. But once you get off the diet, you will notice that the blood sugars will rise and the fatty liver will return if you haven't changed your palate to incorporate beans and legumes. Unlike scientifically engineered foods, beans and legumes control your appetite and keep you full even in the next meal so that you don't eat beyond what your body needs. They are also protein rich to help replace animal protein. And as a bonus, the phytonutrients and fiber promote good gut microbes and inhibit those that are pathogenic that can cause diseases like urinary tract infections. They're also full of micronutrients like potassium. 99% of Americans eat a potassium deficient diet daily. Nutrition inadequacies are still a major problem with many diets, especially if your diet is centered on engineered foods. Now, when I had gestational diabetes, I was told by healthcare professionals to eat sugar substitutes like aspartame as a replacement in my food. Sugar substitutes, how are they even food? A food should provide nutrients to help the body thrive. Sugar substitutes are scientifically engineered to satisfy your craving for sugar, but doesn't add any nutrients to your health. It's akin to a salesman trying to upgrade you with a product that you absolutely have no need for. Sugar substitutes serve one purpose. They lie to your brain. The brain can be easily fooled to do things that are not good for your body. And once you let these toxins in, they keep you addicted. They are also not benign, and they do influence your hormones and neurotransmitters, resulting in inflammation and gut microbiome changes, despite not directly contributing to elevations in blood sugar. Now, unfortunately, what my provider didn't do was to teach me long-term solutions. Eating sugar substitutes was a temporary solution to a temporary state, gestational diabetes. But those who get gestational diabetes have a higher risk of getting full-blown diabetes within 5 years of diagnosis if they don't learn and practice the long-term solutions, which are lifestyles that include beans and legumes. Now, I used to choose my foods based on my mood. What do I feel like eating? Kind of like choosing an outfit or jewelry in the morning. That is a dangerous way to eat and oftentimes results in overeating in calories and undereating micronutrients. Our choices for foods should not be similar to choosing jewelry, but ironically it is. Do you like real stuff or fake stuff? I think we can all agree that a diamond is not the same as a plastic bead. They not only look different, but they serve different purposes. Did you know that diamonds are one of the hardest materials on earth? In fact, diamond ring cutters will literally cut through metal. So if your finger gets stuck in a metal pipe, you would want your diamond cutter to be a real diamond and not a plastic bead. I've had to cut through metal working in urgent care and ERs. And just like gyms, there are cheap and high quality carbohydrates. And when you overeat cheap quality carbohydrates, especially loaded with saturated fat, you will get high blood sugars, fatty liver, and obesity. And it really needs the triple threat: excess calories, excess carbohydrates, and excess saturated fat to build up fatty liver and type 2 diabetes. And this is because these ingredients in excess are toxic to the mitochondria, the factory that metabolizes both sugar and fat. And you will definitely get a fatty liver quicker with insulin resistance. Not long ago, fatty liver was exclusively a disease seen in those drinking excess alcohol, which is a fermentation product of carbohydrates. Alcohol doesn't have more calories than fat, but alcohol is directly toxic to the liver, causing free radicals, inhibits fatty acid oxidation, and stimulates fatty acid synthesis. In other words, alcohol is a toxin to the mitochondria in the liver because it makes the liver accumulate fat and reduces the liver's ability to naturally detox. And fatty liver and diabetes, it can occur in both skinny and obese people through insulin, and hormone that regulates both sugar and fat. The higher the insulin, the worse the fat in the liver. So reducing excess blood sugars and protein are both very important in improving fatty liver, as they both increase insulin secretion. Hence, laying low on animal meats and products is the key. And this is why taking a break from food, like fasting or reducing calories by any means, will improve both blood sugars and reduce the fat in liver. Now, there are 3 kinds of engineered foods: those made just out of plants, those made from obese animals, and those that are a combination of both, like chicken pot pie and pepperoni pizza. They really all share some common qualities. Engineered foods have fancy packaging. They are full of salt or sugar or fat, or all 3. They are convenient, they last way beyond normal food, and they are hyper palatable. It's important not to just eat less of these foods, but to actually replace them with high quality foods that can address all of those 10 commandments of health. And this is the power of eating beans and legumes, which have quality nutrients to help reduce blood sugar, fatty liver, and weight gain. By the way, did you know that fiber is also a carbohydrate? So when you look at the ingredients, it's always helpful to see how many grams of fiber that product has in relation to its carbohydrate. If the ratio is above 5:1, so 6 grams of carbohydrate to 1 gram of fiber, then you have yourself a junkier food product. Now, fiber isn't absorbed, so it won't increase your blood sugars. But that's not really why you want fiber. Soluble fiber also traps the other sugars that you are eating. It's kind of like fly paper trapping flies, and your body has to work to get access to those carbohydrates. This results in a time release of nutrients and energy and lower sugar spikes. In addition, attached to those fiber molecules are pigments called polyphenols, which further inhibit digestive enzymes, slow down conversion of complex carbohydrates into a simple sugar like glucose. That's not all. Fiber, when it reaches your gut microbiome, is fermented into other beneficial compounds such as acetic acid and short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Acetic acid increases an activity of an energy enzyme called AMP kinase that generates more ATP. And when you use up more energy, you lose weight. Those short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, they actually talk to your colonic cells to make hormones such as GLP-1 to turn off your appetite. Have you heard of GLP-1 agonists like Ozempic and Wegovy? They are multi-billion-dollar drugs that copycat GLP-1. This hormone tells the brain that the body is full so that people lose the drive to eat. It delays the release of food in the stomach or gastric emptying time, which also makes people feel full, and it can give you reflux. It makes your pancreas secrete more insulin and makes your muscles more sensitive to insulin. This translates into better blood sugar control and weight loss. Ironically, this natural process is controlled by all natural edible whole plants. Isn't it incredible what biochemistry you can activate with the right foods? Big Pharma is thrilled to discover a way to patent and package and sell it to you. And some people would rather pay thousands of dollars to bypass natural food just to shed a few pounds. Unfortunately, these diamonds in the rough are buried under the marketing of processed foods, and so they appear to be hard to find, but they are not. The key is to find foods your great-grandmother would recognize that are rich in fiber. Now, how much fiber should one target? At least 30 grams of fiber daily. Now, this is not taking a fiber laxative. There are many different fibers throughout the plant kingdom, and they nourish a diversity of gut microbes. If you want to reduce the harmful consequences of antibiotics on your gut microbiome, then eat a diversity of fiber-rich foods right away. The quality, complex carbohydrates found in beans and legumes are some of the best that you can eat. And lots of people have their own theories about food, and luckily, we don't have to follow theories that there are human clinical studies to show that eating legumes and beans promotes less eating, weight loss, reduces blood sugar, and cholesterol. Any of these markers by itself may not increase a person's health. However, when you look at all of them together, several molecules, and the results are in a healthy range, it suggests that the person's overall health is going on the right track. So if your markers are off and you have already incorporated some beans in your diet, then you may want to reevaluate your diet and ask yourself, are you eating really enough whole food plants, and have you removed processed foods and animal products? Now, as your dietary GPA improves, it'll get harder to go from a B plus to an A minus, and then from an A minus to an A plus. I'm still striving for an A plus, and that means I have to eat a certain way every single day, and that's really hard to do. However, do we really need clinical studies to tell us what longevity cultures have been eating for thousands of years? I personally don't want to wait for those studies because I'm probably not going to be around when they prove that it works. So I'm just going to see what healthy centenarians eat, and I'm going to eat that way. Did you know that beans and legumes are considered a low glycemic index food? Now, how can a cup of legumes with 26.2 grams of carbohydrates be a low glycemic index food? There are several reasons for this. Number one, when you eat whole legumes or beans, almost half of the carbohydrates is in the form of fiber. Processed foods use cheap quality carbohydrates because that's how they can make money. Unfortunately, they are purposely designed to keep you hungry, and that's why people use simple sugars. Simple sugars simply don't last. As soon as you drink it, within 20 minutes, your body is absorbing it, which then causes a burst of insulin to rise, which either activates your muscle cells to pull in those sugars, or it activates your fat cells to pull in those sugars. But then, an hour after drinking a simple sugary beverage, your high insulin levels will cause low blood sugars, and this causes more fatigue and irritability. Now, added fructose is one of the cheapest and probably most metabolically toxic commonly found sugar. Remember water beads? They are more toxic than regular plastic beads because they can expand after you swallow it in the gut and cause local trauma. That's kind of like what added fructose does to your liver. It gets stuck there and causes local trauma. Excess added fructose goes directly in your liver, metabolized in your liver to become fat, which gets stuck in the liver, causing fatty liver. Now, I just oversimplified the metabolism of fructose, which is actually quite complex. And usually when you digest glucose, you actually make energy, but it actually takes energy to metabolize fructose. And ultimately, you increase uric acid, blood triglycerides, blood pressure, and weight gain too. Now, it gets even more complex because not all sources of fructose are the same. Added fructose is not the same as those found in nature. So please don't confuse the fructose in whole food and grains from processed fructose made by man or table sugar, which is 50% fructose. Actually, intact fruits, despite having fructose, are some of the best blood sugar-lowering metabolic foods that people can eat, including those with diabetes. And there are several reasons for this. Number one, fruits are low in calories. If all you ate was fruit, there is no way you could gain weight because they are so low in calories as they are rich in water and fiber. And number two, your gut microbiome actually can help you digest small amounts of fructose. And since they are trapped in fibers, the sugars are slowly released to give your body time to metabolize that. But foods made from added ingredients like high fructose corn syrup and table sugar, hidden in powdered food like flour, is the culprit. And this is because when you eat fake stuff that's ground to a powder and glued back together with a binder, it can easily fall apart into powder in your body. It's kind of like the difference between pressed wood and a solid wood table. Pour water on that pressed wood and the whole thing will just start coming apart into pieces. Fiber is literally in every whole plant, and this is a natural form of food that we are supposed to be eating. But instead of eating real food that naturally regulates how much simple sugars we get, people regulate their own servings of simple sugar by eating pounds and pounds of added sugar, roughly almost 60 pounds in a year. The fructose trapped in fruit is actually there for your gut microbiome to digest. And if you chew it, this is a slow process. And after you eat that, a lot of it just gets flushed down the toilet. And this is why eating fruit is a great constipation reliever, which is really important in people who have liver disease because stool has a lot of toxins. In fact, those with liver failure are forced to have diarrhea to keep their minds clear because poorly functioning livers can't detoxify ammonia made from the nitrogen waste of proteins. It's been shown that people with hepatitis viruses, they actually do better when they eat whole fruit. High blood sugars lead to fatty liver, and fatty liver leads to worsening blood sugar. Hence, drinking sugary beverages, including coffee blends, sodas, and sports drinks, are not good for blood sugar and weight control. Eating beans and legumes and eating whole fruits both independently help to reduce blood sugars and weight, and they work in different ways. Whole fruits are rich in water, low in calories, high in fiber, and they have polyphenols that together protect your body from sugar surges and insulin resistance. In fact, when you compare calorie-restricted diets and weight loss, the diet with whole fruit is much better for weight loss and metabolism than the diet without added natural whole fruits. Now, eating the skin and seeds of fruits when possible are really important, like berries and seeded grapes. The skin and seeds are concentrated in polyphenols and are low in sugar and rich in fiber. On top of that, fruit has one of the richest sources of natural water, and they are also filled with vital nutrients like vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients that are specific to the fruit, but man-made food that doesn't have that same structure and function. Modern food is designed to keep you hungry. Otherwise, you wouldn't buy any more product. And this is what is happening to our bodies when we eat processed foods because the promise on the package does not deliver health to our bodies. Hence, you can't just go by glycemic index, which is a measure of how high foods will elevate your blood sugar compared to white bread, which has a glycemic index of 100. Foods that are lower in glycemic index will release glucose slower than foods that are higher in glycemic index. And supposedly, lower glycemic index foods help to foster weight loss, while foods that are higher in glycemic index will increase your blood sugars and therefore your weight. But high glycemic foods are used medicinally to offset the acute episodes of low blood sugar. Have you wondered why table sugar has a lower glycemic index than white bread? This is because white bread is made out of starch, which are chains of glucose molecules, whereas table sugar is made out of 50% fructose and glucose. So when we are measuring glycemic index, we actually only measure glucose. So obviously, glycemic index is not the best marker to help a person pick quality food to eat. And this is also the problem with chasing lab values. So to sum it up, beans and fruits are healthy foods to eat because they have more than just sugar. And that's why I'm going to show you how to combine them and make a tasty mango medley. So start with 2 types of beans. You can just use canned beans. I basically opened and rinsed 2 cans of beans and I took 1 cup of each, really any type. Here I have garbanzo beans and black beans. Here's also a pink lemon. See how there's a tint of pink color? That's a polyphenol that I want in all of my food, that color. And it's really subtle, but if I had traditional yellow lemon, you would really see the pink tinge. Now this lemon is really juicy and it's still sour, unlike sweet lemon, which is basically a low acid lemon. So I'm going to cut this pink lemon so that I can squeeze the juice out. Now if you like your salad with less sour, then put less lemon juice. And if you want more, then put more lemon juice. You can even add some vinegar. Oh, oops, there's some seeds in this lemon, so I forgot to strain it, so I'm going to pick it out. And usually if you squeeze a lemon over a strainer, then you can catch the seeds. Now here is a red onion. I like this red color, again, because of its polyphenols. Red onions are a bit spicier than the white onions, which are generally sweeter. So first I'm going to chop the tail off so that I can just rip out the dried parts. Uh-oh, see how this onion has fungus? It's really important that you don't eat this and you don't aerosolize this. And this is why I cut a portion of it and check the onion before I start cutting it up. This is probably the fungus aspergillus. So I'm going to gently close this because fungal spores are very dangerous to inhale. And when it gets in the air, and if you inhale it, it can get trapped in your lungs. And some people can cause an allergic reaction in the lung, or in other people's, it can actually cause an infection to the lung called a pneumonia. If you are immunocompromised, let's say a person with diabetes, it can actually disseminate in the body. So I'm going to go close it back up and bring it to the sink to see if any of this onion is salvageable. Now, the knife is contaminated with the fungus since I chopped through the onion, and so is the chopping board. So I'm also going to get a new chopping board and I'm going to wash the knife. Now, the inside of the onion was still pretty good, so I rinsed it and removed all the outer parts. So here's my new board and my cleaned onion that I'm now going to dice. Now I'm going to chop one side off and make that side flat to anchor the rest of my onion. Now I'm going to cut it in parallel lines and strips to create a fan that is still anchored at the tip like this. Now the reason why I'm doing this is so that the onion doesn't fall apart. I've learned that this helps me chop the onions a lot faster and they look more uniform. And when it's all done from one side to the other, I will now make perpendicular cuts starting furthest away from the tip, which I've left on to hold the pieces together. Now, if you want smaller pieces, you can even dice it even smaller on the board. I kind of like my onions chunkier, so I'm going to just leave it as is, and the layers will just fall apart once you start mixing it in your salad. So this is probably about half a cup of onions to 2 cups of beans. Now, the goal to making a tasty salad is mixing opposite textures and flavors. So beans are soft, raw onions are crunchy, and a Persian cucumber is even crunchier. And this is my favorite cucumber to eat. I really like cucumbers for its texture, and this fruit has tiny seeds, so you can't really taste it. Now, first I'm going to cut the stem off. Sometimes near the stem, the cucumber may be more bitter because it's younger. Now I'm going to slice the cucumber in half, and then I'm going to slice each half in half vertically. I'm going to put them together to dice them, and you see they'll come out in small pieces. You see how the colors are now blending in? I have red and green, complementary opposite colors. The human eye loves to look at complementary colors. I also have the black with the beige beans, kind of like chocolate and vanilla. And so far I have only sour because I put the lemon juice. So I need now to pair it with something sweet. Sweet and sour are opposite flavors and are very powerful to make food taste better. And that's where the mango comes in. Mangoes are deliciously sweet, especially these types of mango, which are commonly found in the Philippines. That's why these mangoes are called Filipino mangoes or the Carabao mango. So this is how I cut my mango. In the middle is a flat seed. So I'm going to cut on each side of the seed first. The seed is usually hard and flat. So my goal is to cut as close to the seed as possible to maximize the mango flesh. Now I'm going to make a mango flour, which actually helps me cube the mango a lot more easily, but you can also eat it like this. And basically I'm just going to cut it like I did the onions in a checkered pattern and repeat this on both sides. See how juicy it is? You can see the juice glistening as I'm cutting the mango. Now the easiest way is to take a spoon and scoop it out. If your spoon has a thinner edge, it'll be easier to scrape closer to the skin. Now around the seed, there's still going to be some flesh, and I don't like to waste any food. So what I do is I'm going to take the skin off, and then I'll try to scrape this off with the edge of my knife. Now, I don't mind that it comes out like juice. It'll be kind of like what I did with the lemon and just season this salad. And as you get closer to the seed, it gets more fibrous and harder to take off. So my knife is actually quite dull, and this mango is actually quite slippery. So oftentimes I'll just anchor it to the bowl and just scrape it towards the bowl so that I don't cut myself. I've been using a knife for a long time, and this really is not a sharp knife. Otherwise, I wouldn't be holding it up. So now I'm just going to squeeze it since it's just way too fibrous to get any more flesh. And the juice will simply act like a salad dressing. Now I actually want to add a little bit more acid to the salad, so I got some rice vinegar. I could have squeezed more lemon, but what I really wanted was the effects of the rice vinegar, the acidic acid. Since the acidic acid, remember, activates AMP kinase to help elevate your metabolic rate. And this in turn helps to reduce blood sugars. And 2 tablespoons is all I'm adding to the salad. Now I'm going to mix the flavors together and notice how the colors are all popping out, and the bright yellow orange of the mango and the red of the onions and the green of the cucumbers along with the background of black and beige from the beans. Now, this is edible as is, and it tastes really good. Now, some people may want to drizzle a teaspoon of olive oil to the salad or even sesame oil, but honestly, I try not to add oils to my food. Instead, I will eat nuts and seeds to complement this salad. I prefer my oil wrapped in fiber to help slow down the absorption of that oil, as oils and fats have more calories than carbohydrates and proteins. Now, I really like to make this taste more gourmet, and I've noticed that gourmet restaurants, they use fancy herbs. Now, I'm going to add a mint to this salad to give it a more refreshing, fancy taste. Now, remember, always wash your leaves. And you really just want to use the leaves and not the stems. The stems can be as hard as twigs. And I just simply pick the leaves off and then I dice it and add it to my salad. Of course, if you want to add more anti-inflammatory power as well as flavor, try some onion powder, garlic powder, ginger powder, paprika, black pepper, and really, you can put whatever is in your spice cabinet. The salad is great as is, or you can actually use something crunchier like a piece of cabbage or lettuce and to eat it like a salad wrap. Now, 2 cups of beans is 30 grams of protein and 30 grams of fiber. This will really help you be full. And there are 4 key ingredients to food satiety. Number 1 is fiber. Number 2 is protein. Number 3 is energy density. And number 4 is hyperpalatability. This salad hits all 4 for me. And you may still be hesitant to eat carbohydrates because you're told that carbohydrates spike your blood sugars. And it doesn't make sense that foods rich in carbohydrates are actually good for people with carbohydrate metabolism issues. And this is because people keep confusing the root cause of carbohydrate intolerance with the symptoms of carbohydrate intolerance, which are high blood sugars. And if you want to learn more about that, check out the next video.